Thank you. Thank you. How about the minutes? Any corrections, additions to the minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Welcome to our June meeting of the PCAC. To begin, I'm supposed to be introducing someone, but I don't believe she's here. She is not here. So much for that. But I was going to introduce Marilyn Poderson, who is the newly appointed Long Island Railroad Commuter Council member from Central Islip. Should be here, but she's not here yet. She could not. Okay. We're pleased that we have another member. In addition, I'd like to introduce, and I'll do it like he told me to do it, Jay. Jay, my mic is the same as everyone else's. I'm just not close enough. Jay Bardwaj, did I do that right? Okay, our newest intern who's pursuing a master's degree in information technology and analytics at Rutgers University in Newark. Guess that means you're going to be riding New Jersey Transit, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Or PATH, yeah. Good. Excellent.
Hello? Can you hear me?
They can hear you in California.
Very well, Francine.
Wow. Jay will be looking at MTA customer service issues through an analysis of social media posts. He's completed a similar project as part of his academic program, and we're looking forward to him building a new tool for us to track what riders are thinking. So thank you for that, Jay. We also have a second new intern for the summer, Riddhi Parikh, who we expect to be joining us, but apparently that's not going to happen either, right? She's not making it.
She decided
Against taking the position or coming? Oh, for the guest. Oh, okay. She will be assisting with preliminary work on assessment of station conditions. Is that all station conditions? Metro North, Long Island, and transit, or what? Just transit, okay. Okay. As our new folks are not here, but for Jay's sake, let's just go around the table and introduce ourselves and who we represent. Andrew Albert, Transit Riders Council from Manhattan.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? This is Francina.
Yeah, can you hear us, Francina?
Hello?
We can hear you.
Francina, can you hear us?
Francina, can you hear us? No.
I don't think so. I think we're having, can you hear us, Francina? Nope.
No. Randy?
Randy Glucksman, Metro North Railroad Commuter Council.
Orrin Getz, Metro North Rail Commuter Council.
Burton Strauss, Transit Rider Council.
Bill Guild, Transit Riders Council from Manhattan.
Ira Greenberg from the Long Island Railroad Commuters Council. I'm the Queens member.
Sheila Carpenter, Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. Apologize for my absence. I've been teaching, so you haven't
missed
seen me.
you.
Sorry.
Hello?
Francine, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Excellent.
Scott Nichols, New York City Transit Riders Council from Staten Island.
Marisol Halpern, I'm with the New York City Transit Riders Council.
Sharon Hogue, New York City Transit Riders Council, Public Advocate.
Stuart Goldstein, Transit Riders Council.
Christopher D. Grive, Transit Riders Council, Brooklyn.
Your mic's not on.
Sheila Benesh, Transportation Planner, PCAC.
Bradley Brashears, Planning Manager, PCAC.
Helen Shannon, Associate Director, PCAC.
Bill Henderson, Executive Director, PCAC. And Francina, could we ask you to mute your phone? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It did sound rhythmic. I'll give it that. In April, the MTA Board approved a capital program amendment to increase investment in ADA accessibility projects under the 2015 to 2019 capital program. The amendment also includes $300 million for critical station improvements that was added in partnership with the City of New York, including $200 million for accessibility enhancements such as elevators, and $100 million for station circulation enhancements such as redesigned stairs, mezzanines, and platforms. In addition to this, a project to provide ADA accessibility at Westchester Square Station on the 6th line in the Bronx was also added to the capital program. And that was a station that folks thought could not take an elevator, but it's going to. The additional stations that will be improved has not been determined. Oh, actually, I know about 13 or 14 stations that have been approved, but I'm not going to go into that right now. This funding will benefit up to 5 stations. This is in addition to the 13 that I already have listed on previous meetings. The capital program amendment also includes station improvement projects at 2 stations in Brooklyn to support operations while the L tunnel between Brooklyn and Manhattan is closed, beginning in April of 2019. That would be the Driggs Avenue end forget that. I'll just go on to this. The Marcy Avenue station on the JM and Z lines will also receive enhanced stair capacity and platform widening, and the Broadway Junction station on the JZ and A and C, of course, will receive additional stairs as well as an expanded mezzanine. And anyone who's used Broadway Junction knows that will be a very welcome addition. I've also heard that during the L train shutdown, some of the closed station entrances on the J, M, and Z lines along Broadway in Brooklyn will be possibly reopened to accommodate the extra people that will be using those lines while the L is closed down, which is also what a lot of community folks have been asking for. The amendment also includes over $300 million in funding for signal and critical track work included in the Subway Action Plan to increase reliability. This work was approved by the board, the MTA board, in December of 2017. The amended plan includes $287 million worth of signal repair and modernization work and $53 million for funding for continuous welded rail. And apparently they're also looking, they've done it successfully on the newly reinvigorated M line between Queens and Brooklyn. There are also special dampers on the tracks that make the trains quieter and the ride smoother. And if you ride 2nd Avenue, you'll feel the smoother ride from the track dampers. And I think those have been successful, and they're going to look to do those elsewhere when they rebuild a line. The amendment that was approved does not require any additional funding above that included in the current program. One way this is done is through the allocation of savings from a below-budget contract for the R211 cars. We don't know what those are going to cost yet. Other spending reductions were achieved by allocating other costs to future capital plans to better reflect when work is actually performed. The capital program amendment also makes adjustments to remaining projects in the current approved capital program to reflect refined project scopes, revised cost estimates, and updated project delivery times, which unfortunately have been fluctuating. For the East Side Access Project, which we will hear much more about today from our guest speaker, approximately $418 million is shifted from the 2010 to 2014 program to the current 2015 to 2019 program. This will not affect the progress of the project as completion of East Side Access remains scheduled for 2022. And what's that expression? We should live so long, right? We should. Okay. Despite, yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, yes. Well, if you want to go way back, I guess it was 2012, but it just keeps getting pushed and pushed.
2012? So it's 10 years later?
Yeah, but I don't know how realistic 2012 was, so.
That was, I think that was in the original environmental document.
But wait a minute. But when the work
That's
started,
a good question.
I remember.
I don't know, Bert.
We went down there a while ago, and they gave us some date then, which I know was earlier than it now, than 2018? Do you
I
remember
believe they had a
when-
2016 date at one point. And then
Yeah.
they sort of went up by year. I think they went to about 2018 or 2019 and went out a year at a time.
But
sort of.
to be fair, there has also been Project Creep. There's a lot more things in this particular 2022 East Side Access Plan than there was in the original one, for instance.
Oh, CREEP,
So
it's not
there's
an acronym, it's actually.
CREEP, meaning
the
additions,
project
additions,
creeping along.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yeah. Anyway, despite sentiment among board members that the MTA should seek to delay or moderate the next fare hike that is planned for early 2019, MTA Chair Loda has stated he has not yet seen a scenario that will allow MTA agencies to modify the current pattern of fare increases every 2 years at approximately the rate of inflation. Some had hoped congestion pricing would have been the major change that could break this pattern, but at this point it is extremely unlikely that congestion pricing revenues will become available in time to impact the next budget year. There are several board members that believe that once congestion pricing is in and the revenues are flowing in, that a future fare hike could either be ameliorated or done away with. And there is some sentiment to that. But of course, you have to pass the program and the revenues have to come in and you have to install all the readers and everything, and that is just not happening yet. Although I would assume now with the fast forward plan, there's even more pressure now to pass congestion pricing. Yes.
That also doesn't keep in mind really the breadth of the new money needed at all. And when you look at that compared to congestion pricing, how much congestion pricing actually brings in, which is why you already need money in addition to congestion pricing and finding that somewhere. So.
If any of the estimates on the fast forward plan are to be believed, and there's so many unknowns, they really should. That's why the chairman didn't want to put out an estimate yet, because every station has not yet been surveyed to see what it would take and if they can be made accessible, which is one of President Byford's goals, to make as many stations accessible as possible. We still don't know what the retrofit of existing car types from the R68 up to the current car types for CBTC will cost, or even what company is going to do that. There's just so many unknowns, which is why it's sort of, you have a neighborhood of what all of this is going to cost, but whether it's real or not, nobody really knows that yet. So, Randy.
The Move New York plan proposed by the governor, and then he didn't listen to what?
Yeah, well, supposedly the for-hire vehicle charge and taxi surcharge that comes in on January 1st is phase one of the Move New York plan, but we need to move a lot faster if we want to get these things done.
Our own sort of data point, I think, that's relevant is when we were doing the roundtables with business leaders and real estate leaders, there was, behind closed doors, there was an acknowledgement that for the size of the job and the size of the asset, getting closer to $50 billion would be a more appropriate capital program than where they are at now at the $32 billion. So it is a point somewhere out there, but that $50 billion was the number thrown around the room. It seemed like that matched the size of the infrastructure and the acknowledging the increase in the ridership and expansion needs.
As we've been saying for several cycles of these fare hikes, the cost of fares is becoming unaffordable for more and more riders. We see this in both the Fair Fares campaign and in the experiences of individual commuters who have seen their income stagnate or even fall while their transportation expenses have risen over the past decade since the current system of adjusting fares every other year has taken place. There needs to be a reassessment of how the MTA agencies are funded. Unless there are dramatic changes in the waning days of the legislature's current session, we will likely see another round of fare hearings after the November election, followed by a vote on new fare levels in conjunction with the budget in December, with the fare hikes likely taking place in early March or so.
Another question.
Yes.
The fare, if that goes through, which I assume will be part of the discussions about the fare being raised, that will mean even less revenues coming in, right?
No. if it would be the city of New York that would be instituting the program, they would make up the loss. The MTA would be held harmless.
Has the mayor agreed to that? I
He
don't
has
think
not yet,
so.
but his appointees on the board are pushing strongly for it.
And
Yeah,
there's-
but the
As well,
mayor
as
has,
well as Corey Johnson.
I
Yeah, there's some-
understand, but the mayor has not included that in
No.
his proposed budget.
Right.
And the
It's-
budget is
there is a
supposedly coming out in a couple of days.
It's supposedly,
Yeah.
allegedly, but there's been no mention of, I've been, as you can imagine, I've been following this quite closely. And I guess I'm asking a rhetorical question more than anything else, because if that is not included in the budget, in our budget, and there is no provision for the reduced revenue that will come because of that, then what happens with as far
The
as the mayoral
MTA has
appointee?
stated
as far as the mayoral-
categorically they are not subsidizing fair fares. Municipalities would be the ones to do that, or state government or whatever, but not the MTA.
And that is the position of the board, including the mayoral appointees?
They want, obviously, David Jones has been the most outspoken.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
understand about that, but the other mayoral appointees, like Polly and the others.
I haven't heard their position on. They're in favor of the proposal, but who pays for it? I have not heard. I've just heard it from MTA folks, and obviously, the MTA needs all of the money. So, moving along. Speaking of the budget, we'll get our first look at the proposed 2019 budget in the July financial plan that will be released at next month's meeting of the MTA board. We have heard the budget will be very tight, no surprise, with all the priorities that the MTA is seeking to address. There has also been some softness in revenue, both in fares and in the real estate-related taxes that support the MTA. The revenue picture seems to be improving, but we still need to look closely at how the MTA is funded and to oppose changes that will put more pressure on fares. MTA Arts and Design has just announced the addition of 28 musical acts to its MTA music roster that formerly was known as Music Underground because under New York because they're now above as well. And it affords performers official recognition and priority to use prominent high-traffic locations in MTA stations. Most of these are within the subway, but Metro North's Grand Central Terminal and the Long Island Railroad's Atlantic Terminal and Penn Station each have 2 preferred performance spaces. There are a total of more than 350 performers of diverse musical styles on the MTA music roster, and they must register for opportunities to play at specific times and places throughout the MTA, unlike the ad hoc groups that you've seen spring up and blasting their music. Of course, any performers may play within public spaces at MTA stations with a few restrictions, but the MTA music program gives talented performers a leg up as they work to reach new audiences. Okay. Yes, and decibel levels, which have been major issues. So let's hear from Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. Ira.
Mark, who's our chair, is not here today. Did everybody read the report, or should I just go briefly through it?
You can just highlight what you think is...
Really? Okay. As everyone knows, Phil Eng is the new president of the railroad. I think within the last 3 months is when that replacement, Pat Hokowski, left. So several initiatives. I mean, even when Pat Hokowski was there was an initiative about improving the railroad. We've had historic, the last several years, bad on-time performance, peaking this last winter season. So there was a push to make a concerted effort. Pat Nowakowski came up with a long list of things that the railroad was going to do, really basic stuff like hiring more signal maintainers and changing some other things around, many things around the railroad, maintenance schedules, things like that. And they, and Phil Eng when he took over, he redid that, and I think they call that moving forward. I don't know, fast, whatever it's called. The word forward's used in it, and it's going to be a program. It's already put into place, and hopefully we'll be seeing better on-time performance on the railroad. Mark met with Phil Eng not that long ago and had a nice discussion about working together. He seems much engaged about working with the Commuters Council, so we're happy to report that. And he wants us to be involved with their outreach efforts as well as comments on projects that they're doing.
Excellent. That's good news.
Yes, it is. And he made a commitment to correcting the recurring problems that have tormented commuters, but brought his own perspective to the actions the learner will be taking. Last month, he released a learner forward package, which I mentioned, and with a special emphasis on communication with riders, which has been a very big sore point of our communities council and really the riders in general, is that when there's a delay, you don't know what's going on or what's going to happen. So they're making a big effort in that. I know we had toured the communication center a while back with that, and that began that effort. Let's see what else. And I don't know if anyone saw it's a Summer Saturdays program. I'm happy to that allows monthly ticket holders on Saturdays from June to August to purchase up to 4 companion tickets for $1 each. In other words, there's already a family program on the commuter railroads, as everyone knows, but that only covers kids below 11, I think. This means anybody with the monthly ticket holder can ride for $1 each, up to 3 people, anybody, not just family even. So that's a really good thing, hoping to boost weekend ridership and keep people off the LIE, especially considering we have the Belmont Stakes and the U.S. Open Golf Championship coming up. Let's see what else.
And it doesn't hurt that Phil Eng commutes from Smithtown every day. So
yes, he is a Long Islander and he commutes. Yes.
It. Yep.
As I don't know if people know, there's been cameras put on the trains. I mean, we have cameras on our buses too, but we asked for a summary of the number of cameras that are being used in each on the rolling stock and what's done with the recordings, how they kept, if someone you need a subpoena to release them, how does the Long Island Railroad treat the information? So we're hoping to see a response on that. Because people have been concerned about what's done with the recordings made on the trains. Is there going to be outreach? Customer conversations, I think they're termed. There's going to be a few of them around on the island, and we're hoping to get the Phil Eng to the terminals with us to do outreach to riders. I'm hoping to do that in the coming months. We'll see what happens there. See what else. There's East Side Access, which I think is going to be more fully discussed. The double track project on the Ronkonkoma branch is coming to a nearby. I think by the end of maybe even earlier, it should be put online, and that'll be a great boost to Ronkonkoma on-time performance as well, and be able to add some service because right now there's only 1 track. There'll be 2 tracks in the Ronkonkoma branch. 3rd track is just beginning. That's the 3rd track mainline project, which I know we've all talked about and discussed here. It's finally moving forward, so we're hoping to see that. That should be done by 2022.
East Side Access Date.
Right. So that's going to be a great
something
thing.
else that's sort of late breaking news that probably isn't in anybody's report is that the MTA has partnered with Waze so that folks will not be directed to turn onto railroad tracks.
Yeah, that was a little bit. That's right. They're going to partner with Waze. Well, one of the problems that everyone's facing is the use of these apps. That's distracted driving. I mean, that's something. We don't have a council that covers the bridges and tunnels, but it's an issue on bridges and tunnels. It's an issue on Long Island because we have so many railroad crossings. As people are following these directions and winding up on railroad tracks, but this following these directions blindly also can create a distraction for the driver as well.
It presumes you're not looking up while you're following this, which is.
Yeah, it is, but people, it's everything you do in a vehicle is a distraction. And one of the issues is that people maybe they're not familiar with the area. They make the turn, they don't see it until it's too late that it's not a road, it's a railroad. So we're going to we've asked, I know the board has talked about this, asking Waze, and Waze is owned by Google, but whatever the mapping system is, to note on it, but very securely that it's a railroad track, not to turn, when it says turn right, sometimes I think what's happening is the road is near the tracks.
It's parallel.
So, and if anyone's used it, that's a serious problem. So we'll see how that works out. I mean, I'd love to hopefully reduce the amount of people who wind up on our railroad tracks. There's no more. Yes, there's no more. Just so people who don't ride the railroad regularly know, there's no more bar carts at Penn Station. So if you want to get your alcoholic beverages, you have to get them at Penn Station before you get on the train. So that's been discontinued, as well as the Metro North. Okay, I think that's it. It's a lengthy report. Last thing is PTC. I think Metro North could report on that too. PTC is moving ahead. I strongly believe, I believe that both Metro North and Long Island Railroad will be compliant with FRA. It's just PTC probably won't be implemented on every branch, which was the original plan by December. I don't think that's absolutely necessary considering the kind of signal system we have, which is, automatic speed control with cab signaling. But one of the things is employee safety is really what PTC adds, and hopefully they'll be able to, after December, as quickly as possible. There's other issues with PTC, and I think Metro North will go into it about equipment availability, especially on the other side of the Hudson. So that's an issue I think that even the Long Island Railroad might have, as our M9 equipment isn't coming in as quickly as we had hoped. If need be, they will temporarily equip some M3s, which we're trying to get rid of by the January deadline, to at least so that they will be equipped. Whether the equipment will ever be used, that's another question. Because the FRA requirement is all the equipment should have PTC on it, but that doesn't mean every branch has to have PTC operational. You have to have your first branch, which is the Port Washington branch, which will be done. So that's
I think the Greenport branch of the Long Island Railroad and the Waterbury branch of Metro North got an exemption because they have 2 trains a day or something like that. But there is other safety precautions on those stretches.
Well, when you run one train, how could you run it into another train?
Exactly.
But if you're going, but if they plan to do that, then I think the exemption. I don't know if they're going to go. I think they may equip Greenport with it because it has a signal system. But
those 2 sections, the Greenport branch of the Long Island Railroad and the Waterbury branch.
Well, Waterbury branch says I don't think I think Greenport's going to have
PTC. Where if you want to commit suicide, you need a timetable.
Yeah, no, they have, there's only one train on the tracks at a time.
Last summer, and I think the summer before, Long Island Railroad chartered some cars from Maryland for the MARC system.
They are again.
They are again?
And they're trying to get more. They've jiggered the schedule enough to add even more trains on the Montauk branch to the Hamptons.
Excellent.
Because they're running a train back and forth to Babylon to hook up with some of the electrics, and that way you get more service.
Great. Metro North. You had a question, and this is another question, so sure. Why don't you let Ada speak for herself? Yes?
No, I know, because she texted. Anyway, Andrew, I'd like to bring up something that was brought in today also, because at Atlantic Terminal, there is a problem with a crack that is leaking on top near the ticket office area. Deborah has the picture of it, but it's been getting nothing getting attention to it or getting fixed. If another heavy rainstorm comes in, it will cause another Niagara Falls version.
Well, we'll report it. We don't know if that's an internal water problem or from
Well,
water. We'll
as
find out.
I bumped into the general manager, she gave me the Atlantic tickets. The gentleman, it needs to be checked like now. Should have been fixed and checked now, because it is a safety concern. Because if another storm comes in or something else happens, someone will get hurt, and I think something needs to be done. Like, yes, Long Island Railroad level, where you can go right when you go in your ticket, where there's the other ticket office downstairs.
Do you know what track it's parallel to or nearest to?
Near, I'm going to say the track 1 from 4, near the staircase. If you're going up, but it's like. But it's also near the entrance of the other entrance of the B&Q.
I suspect that the station manager knows it.
Yes, he does. He has put it in, but why it takes so long, I have no idea. That should have been checked immediately.
We have to move a little more.
No, I'm just mentioning that, and because it is accessibility issue there too. But there is other issues and accessibilities that I like to save a new business.
Yes, yes, sir.
There a parking garage that's on the railroad that's collapsing? I saw something on TV the other night. I don't know the exact location.
Myra knows.
No,
There was to have been a new.
there is a relatively recently constructed garage the town of Oyster Bay owns at Hicksville that is having some structural issues, and they're having closed pieces of it to do repairs.
Yeah, it was to have opened, but now it's not scheduled till September now, or something?
Yeah, they're closing pieces of it and doing some repairs on it, and so there's some consternation about that because it's not that old. But it doesn't belong to the railroad. It belongs to the town of Oyster Bay.
Most parking facilities on Long Island do not belong to the railroad.
Right.
And that's an
Private.
ongoing issue with trying to, you have issues where if there's no service on one branch, people are told to go to another branch. They go to the other branch, they wind up with tickets because the parking is often reserved for the local towns or is full because of the shortage. But that's what, it's a long-term issue.
Randy?
Following up on what Ira said about the Long Island President Phil Eng riding the train, this is great. We know Andy Byford rides the subways, and I know that President Rinaldi rides Metro North, and violating the commandment that says thou shalt not criticize another. The New Jersey Transit Board people don't ride their trains, so they have no idea what's going on. And this, I'm talking as loud as I can. They don't have no idea of what is going on, and so of course that's why they're in the mess they're in now. And the PTC is important, has to be installed in the cars, but they don't have to do it for our lousy 4 cars and an engine and the crew. And I've written this to Metro North. I will discuss it next week at the MJ Transit Board meeting. We had a press conference with Congresswoman Nita Lowey 3 weeks ago. Warren and I were there. We were two of the 4 speakers. The county executive also spoke. It was covered by the local media. There were other events going on, and just this week, Senator Schumer came out in support of what Congresswoman Lowey and us have done. And Orrin managed to get a copy of a letter from our state senator, and our assembly people promised also to write letters, but it seems it's all falling on deaf ears. And the train line, the PCAC Valley line, which we use frequently, which has the fewest trains in this part of the New Jersey and New York area, has lost now 2 more of its express trains. So we're hoping that we can get them back sooner rather than later.
So if you, and it's well publicized that you've lost those 2 expresses, are there locals to substitute for those?
Well, what they're
or is that
suggesting,
frequency just
no,
gone?
it's absolutely gone. They adjusted the time of the train that was leaving behind it to cover for some of it, and then they added a train at the lower end of the line to cover 4 stations so that train can run express and make up some of the time. But people who were taking the 805 express now have to take the 737 local train to get to New York at the same time they could have taken the 805 express. So they've stolen all that time out of everybody's day. And another issue that came up and it wasn't realized by NJ Transit, and they have not addressed it, is that since for 26 years, we've had a Friday afternoon train which is supplements the normal, we would have a 2-hour schedule break. This extra train there, and it's used by the Orthodox population to get home to prepare for their religious observance, and that train has been canceled too. So another thing we'll bring up at the next week's NJ Transit Board meeting. I received an invitation today to a special conference at the county executive's office next Tuesday afternoon, and hopefully Metro North and New Jersey Transit will show up. Other board members who represent west of Hudson were also invited to be there. So Ellen went to see the new executive director of NJ Transit at Hoboken, and she came away with the same thing that I actually was out riding the Northeast Corridor yesterday, and as I always ride the train, I speak to crews and find out what's going on. And they all shared the same opinion that there's not very much has happened since the new governor came, even though he claimed he was going to fix things. Nothing has happened so far. And they're still short engineers, which is really what's driving their canceling of all these trains.
One of the things that came across strongly on my visit out to New Jersey was they don't really have a lot of board members. I mean, first of all, they've got empty seats that the legislature is not approving, and even if they have full seats, the number of board members they have to help bring back New Jersey Transit is dwarfed by the number Metro North or Long Island Railroad has. So they've got a double whammy there of the governor and Kevin Corbett don't have a lot of people there to help them sell the need for reinvesting in New Jersey Transit.
And you also have the possibility, if Richard Anderson is the president of Amtrak, is to be believed that if any section of track does not have PTC operational by December of 2018, they will cease to run trains along that right
No,
of
no,
way. Of
I
course.
think, no, I think the corridor is going to have it. It's the trains have to be
Corridor will
equipped.
definitely have
Yeah,
it,
but
yeah.
yes, because Amtrak owns the car. It's the equipment that has to have it installed on it.
Push your button.
That's where New Jersey Transit pressed the panic button, because 80% of their riders use the Northeast Corridor, and they realized that they would have a profound impact if they don't have enough equipment to run their trains with positive train control. I think the biggest problem New Jersey Transit has is that it's the control cars, the single-level control cars. They just don't have enough of them running and in the pool to do this while they're installing positive train control. And that was from very, very bad planning. As Randy and I found out, there was a whole fleet of control cars which have to be run as trailer cars because they were never upgraded. And we're going to bring this up at the New Jersey Transit Board meeting. Had those cars been upgraded to operate as control cars, then I think New Jersey Transit would not be in the predicament it is now.
And it isn't like they haven't been told. Orrin has been telling them for the better part of a year at their meetings that they need to give us a report on PTC like the MTA does. He even gave them copies of the books. They've done absolutely nothing with it. There was some major storms on the upper Harlem line, and in fact, all of the three east of Hudson lines were affected, but Metro North was able to get service restored very quickly, and we do all thank them for it at the last Metro North Committee meeting. Yeah, Amtrak is once again back in Grand Central, and it's something that people haven't had since last summer, but before that was in 1990 when Amtrak pulled their trains out. And according to one of my friends who rides the train every day, she says that the commuters love coming into Grand Central. Anything else you want to read is there. I'm going to just end my report right here. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. You have a question for Randy?
It's regarding Grand Central, as I mentioned to him earlier. The only thing that I have been doing for the last couple of days also, because I did have to travel to Albany the other day, is at least I know I had to go to the Ticketmaster office to get a Metro North red cap to be transported, or someone on a wheelchair has to be Master Office General, whatever they call them anymore. But the
Station Master's office.
Station Master.
Station Master's office. Either. You know, you may be right. I was going to a concert. It's called the Yellow Submarine, but but anyway, they were escorting them to the train first before the regular customers get on. The only thing that needs to be adjusted is if you already know the train's already at that station already, they don't show the number of what the track is going to be on, which everyone can see down there. It's there, but I don't know why they
Metro
leave it as
North
blank.
posts for hours ahead of time the tracks.
It does. No. Hold on.
Amtrak. Oh, Amtrak.
Hold on,
is not
guys.
there?
You're both.
Oh,
let me.
okay, sorry.
Randy, let me. Hold on. Can I finish? Everyone, let me finish today. It's not the point. The point is it does show, but does not show the number of the track that is supposed to be there, and it's already there. I already went on mta.info, and it does show an Albany train, but no number track. And you see it there. The train's parked there, like say track 21, Blackjack.
I'm looking at a picture I took last year, July 17th. I have the Hudson Line departures, and it says the 2:15 on track 38, Albany Rensselaer Amtrak train number 235 to Albany. So I have a picture of it last year. I will take a look when we go back to Grand Central after the
It's
meeting
this
is
year.
over.
It's not. I agree
Well,
with you last year.
I'll
Maybe
look
there's
at
a
it.
problem. We'll look into it.
We'll look
Yeah.
at it when I get back to Grand Central.
Also, it would be also, Randy, is there possible you can ask them to possibly just temporarily, but instruct the accessible or senior or disabled customers to go to that office so they can get escorted to the train, because their Amtrak did make a big mistake error on it, because they tell people there's no red cap or anything. They ignored them, but when Metro North does it, they did help them out really much, and I do want to compliment that, because when I got off my train last night, they were ready and they got these 4 wheelchairs off the train safely with the metal plate, crossing them onto the edge. They did a really good job. but it should be, there should be like something like a temporary sign to tell them where to go to get assistance for that, just for temporarily, because Amtrak is not going to help.
Okay. Randy made note of that. Edith.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a total screw up with it where we've been told many different stories by both Amtrak and Metro North. I went to take a little field trip because I go out next Thursday. And it's just, it's like we're supposed to know where it is. And there's no way of knowing where it is.
By it, you mean what track the train is on?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm usually 45 minutes early, so I know I'm in my train and in my spot and the whole routine. And I beat the luggage on, which is going to be put where I'm sitting. They also will say to people, "Nope, you're too late. We can't get you on the train now." So we need a little warning.
Yes, absolutely. That's
But
not-
this is Amtrak, right?
This is Amtrak at Grand Central.
Grand
Right, no, that's what I mean. So
According
Amtrak,
to
no.
Amtrak, well, excuse me.
Okay, go ahead.
According to
please.
Amtrak, Grand Central, Metro North is responsible. According to Metro North, Amtrak is responsible. I don't give a damn who's responsible. I just want to get on the train.
Well, but it's an Amtrak train. They can't just say someone else is responsible. That's just
They
so-
do, Ira. They do.
I know they do, but they shouldn't. That's what I'm
Okay,
saying. They
well,
really,
we
that's
all
really
agree they
crazy.
shouldn't.
Let's just.
Folks,
they should be gracious hosts.
we're up against a real deadline, so let's move.
All right, go ahead.
We will look into why Amtrak's tracks are not being posted on Metro North's board. Yeah, obviously, the number. We have someone very responsive at Amtrak we can ask. No, that's not. Okay. Let me go to the transit report because we have a lot to talk about. If you've been over there, you've seen we have a cake. I'm very excited to report that the MTA board approved Atlantic Ticket Field Study, which is the pilot test of Freedom Ticket at its May meeting. We're at the beginning of this now, and there are many lessons to be learned. But 11 years after the PCAC coined the term Freedom Ticket, and after 4 years of perseverance by our council, the proposal is coming to fruition. In the study phase, eligible travel will be among 8 Brooklyn and Queens stations, as well as Atlantic Terminal and Jamaica, and there will be limited fare options consisting of either an individually priced ticket at $5 each way or a $60 weekly pass that incorporates a 7-day Metro card. The study started yesterday with the first weekly tickets taking effect this coming Saturday, June 9th. Obviously, I must thank again Bradley for his tireless work on this project and all those who have advocated in favor of Freedom Ticket and spread the word about its advantages, and in particular Trudy Mason and Chris Greif, who came to testify on behalf of this project at the Finance Committee of the board in May, and Sharon, of course. Sharon was there too. While this has been a long process, this pilot program shows that working collaboratively with the MTA can yield results that will benefit a large number of riders. Bradley and Ellen were out at various stations in Southeast Queens, as you were too, weren't you? Oh, you didn't go? Okay. Well, and I know that you would like to give a quick update on your experience yesterday.
So I left from Atlantic Terminal and went. It should be working now. I left from Atlantic Terminal to see some reverse commuters, and there's lots of room on those trains, but a lot of those riders that I talked to are infrequent. They ride 2 to 3 days a week, not every day, and so they were asking for what's the possibility of a 10-trip ride. And us just thinking through it, it seemed like there are complications possibly to being able to do that right now. But we have a question in to Long Island Railroad about what was their thinking on the pros and cons of a 10-trip ride. And then the conductors were on board talking about it, informing passengers when they had a passenger that was going to Southeast Queens that might be interested in learning about that they could pay less. I think one of the things that we found interesting was the screens. Atlantic Ticket comes up right with one of the first screens, which is great. if you put in Atlantic ticket, but it's going to be less expensive for you in the off-peak direction or whatever, it'll pop you out. It only has you able to select if it is a savings. So we thought that was a real benefit to the people using the program. There were people out, they have people at some of the stations, Rosedale, where Bradley went to, Atlantic Terminal. They don't have people at every station. So we did feel like we were filling in a little bit. Thanks to Chris. Chris brought some of the brochures that are getting handed out and distributed them to everybody. And that's the main vehicle that Long Island Railroad is providing right now on the benefits. And they did launch their website, which is terrific because it's a website clean of the MTA's website, and they now just maybe today put it on the MTA's website. So we're going to be recommending people go there.
But if you selected the MTA's website, you went into Long Island Railroad, you went into fares, and you selected 2 stations that are eligible for Atlantic ticket, it did not pop up. I went in to Ronnie with this today, and she goes, "This is not good. I will fix this." So by the end of today, that should be working as well, because not everybody knows to go to the...
And just one other thing was, and then Bradley and Edith, it was so heartwarming to hear the stories of people that are going to have much shorter commutes and being able to see their kids and do other things. I mean, people were excited about being able to, they were like, really? We're going to have this much savings? Really? So that was pretty cool, because I don't think they hear that very often, that they're going to have a savings.
And I started off in Rosedale, and I had a slightly different experience than Ellen did, that I encountered a lot of people who would be using the weekly. And so when I got up to the station early in the morning, there was a guy by the name of Anthony from Long Island Railroad, and I thought that there would actually be more people stationed at the station. And so when the platform started to fill up, he was trying to answer all these questions, so I jumped in to try to help him answer all these people's questions, and it was very impressive to see how many people were very happy about the service, and they'd be using the weekly ticket, which would be saving them a lot of money. And so basically it's, if people are paying for the month, it's like up to like $340, and this will save them like over $100 every month. So they were very pleased about that.
And 100 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really, what I thought was really fascinating is Ellen and I went to Rochdale Village, and they actually, it was funny because they were having a big community meeting, and we were just showing up to drop off pamphlets, and Ellen did an impromptu little speech, and it was great. We had all these people raising hands. We were passing out pamphlets, and of course, a lot of them were seniors, so their senior discount's better than the Atlantic ticket, but they had a lot of people who, are their kids, or they had people who, like their grandkids who are students going down into Brooklyn, so this would be very beneficial to them. So I was very impressed about the reception to Atlantic tickets. So.
And Rochdale turned out at Locust Manor when we had a preliminary event there. They were very excited about it, because they're within walking distance of Locust Manor. Yeah. Edith had her hand up first, and then Trudy.
Yeah, my only problem with that is I, for one, always buy my ticket whenever I pass the station. I'm not buying my ticket to use it right now. So if I were going to use the station, is the time of day that the machine lets you buy the ticket, if you're knowingly buying a ticket to use it at an off-peak time, is it going to sell it to you? Is it a warning, or is
the
it...
Atlantic ticket is good in peak or off-peak. You can buy it 24 hours a day.
It's only valid the day you buy it. You can't buy it in advance.
For the daily.
For the daily, not the weekly.
For the daily, not for the weekly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I was at Atlantic, or when I was at Jamaica in the morning, I was trying to do an Atlantic ticket to Rosedale, which would have been the off-peak, but it wouldn't let me select the station I wanted to go to, and I had, when the platform conductors was there, and he basically explained to me that the ticket machine understands what you're trying to do, and so it wouldn't give me the Atlantic ticket because the off-peak fare was only $4 compared to $5. So it kind of controls for what you can and cannot do.
On the weekly, I wanted the experience of buying a weekly and figured out we're going to be in and out observing this. And that has a date time. So it starts the date of Saturday for the weekly, and so each time it'll print. So I guess you can buy maybe up to a week, 6 days in advance.
Yeah, you can buy weeklies starting on Wednesday of the week before. Yeah.
Yeah. Trudy?
Okay. When this passed the MTA board, there was coverage, at least on New York One, just giving the what I know it was Jose because I spoke to him afterwards because he didn't get it exactly straight. I mean, I knew what it was about, and so I explained a little bit more to him. But now that it is actually, and it came from a press release that the MTA, he told me, and the MTA press release was not exactly great either. But now that it is in effect, could we request or can we put out our own press release? Again, because I think some of the questions that Ellen is talking about, that Bradley is talking about, unless Ellen wants to go around to every community group and everything else, that it might be useful to put out saying, what is it called? Atlantic ticket is now in effect. You can, and giving some of the basic information.
I think the real launch is going to be Monday, and I think when that happens, we will be putting out our own press release. Absolutely.
We are going to, okay.
Yeah,
and
there's
giving
not gonna...
as much information. I mean, I will make some calls then to see if I can get some of my friendly people to print it or to cover it on.
They're still, they're setting up an event right now.
And where is the event going to be?
Don't know.
We don't know.
No. Will you let us know when and where the event is going to be so that?
And Sheila has now been preparing some materials for us. So when we go out, we're speaking in Southeast Queens today to a group that's about 30 to 50 people. The sort of the before after, because now we have the actual numbers of what the savings mean for people to be able to bring home.
No, but let's get out a mass, something that will be covered by all the media, or as much as we can get them to cover, because that will help.
Stuart?
Yeah, just very quickly related to this, at our meeting, I had raised some questions about where the fair media could be purchased. So you still can't get it at Jamaica Terminal, and you still can't get it at 34th? You can get it at 34th?
You can buy it at any of the stations where it's
any station, so that's different than... That's not what I... So then, 34th Street, Penn Station, you can get?
No, you cannot.
But Jamaica...
Jamaica, you can.
Okay.
With the exception that there are 2 stations that only have daily ticket machines and no ticket windows, and you can't buy the weekly there.
Like East New York.
St. Albans and Queens.
And Hollis.
Okay. And then the other thing is, so if I'm traveling on that line and this plan was not in effect, what's the savings? I think we should be touting that,
I think the peak fare for one of these stations to Atlanta Terminal was 10 1/4, and now it's 5.
So I think that's how maybe we should be. Yeah.
That should definitely be the financial savings, because that's what people, I think, are more interested than anything else. So if we're putting out a press release, please
save money and time.
Let me just say that Randy has an answer to the Grand Central issue that folks were raising a few minutes ago. Randy?
All right, so the deal is that the track assignment gets posted depending on when the Amtrak crew is on the train, 20 to 25 minutes ahead of time. There are no signs posted in Grand Central because they just don't do it. But the people, it's on the website, I was told, and if they need help, they can ask any Metro North employee, and there are plenty of the station people in those uniforms around there. Anyone will help them, bring them to the SMO, Station Master's office, and they will get the assistance that they need to have. The reason they don't...
When you say signs are not posted, are you
Well, yeah, someone asked about putting signs about red caps and stuff.
What about the big board? I don't know if it's called that anymore, but the board in the
The departure board you're talking about? Yes, the train is up there, but the track assignment doesn't get posted till they know that the Amtrak crew is on the train. But some of the folks
are saying it doesn't get posted at all.
No, it's not. He said it's not true. He said it's not true.
Okay.
But the reason that they don't post it so much in advance, because the train that could be there, they don't want the line snaking across the whole, and they had this problem last year where the lines were going all the way across the terminal, and people couldn't easily get through there. So that's why they decided to take that course of action.
That's true.
Who doesn't know to go where what?
Excuse me,
Randy,
As
I
I
have to
said,
tell you
they
this,
could ask
Randy.
any
no,
employee
Randy,
and they will tell
I
them.
did say, and I will tell you this. These people asked, where do we wait for the Amtrak train? I don't know. No Amtrak comes here. That was your Metro North employees. And this has been done. And when I was coming back, I heard the same complaints. I walked up and down the aisle because I wanted a little stretching. And I heard the same thing. That is not acceptable. Grand Central, I see Metro North trains listed early, as well as the trains going into Connecticut. That is not acceptable that you don't have a track listed or tell them where to go. And your staff there has to do a far better job. And they're not helping people with disabilities.
Well, can I add one thing?
I think we need to move on.
I know, understand we have to move on, but this answer was brought up. So the answer to one thing I'm saying is because the Amtrak is there, we still need, they need to let the employees know that if accessible person, any accessible person, anyone who has accessible ticket needs to know where to go, which it's not, because it's a very congestion station and it's a safety concern too. So
Yeah, everybody needs to know what track
it's
your
just a
train's on.
number issue
No, but
that
I think it's important to say the turnaround for trains in Penn Station is significantly different than the turnaround for trains in Grand Central because they have the capacity. Trains can sit in there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes even in Grand Central, so there's this luxury. Whereas Penn Station, the trains come in, load and go practically.
because they come from both
so that if they try to tell you a track, 10 minutes in advance, people are going to go down and get on the wrong train because they're coming in. So there's a problem with the capacity of Penn Station, but you're going to have another mix-up if you try to post before, and it seems like they don't always know ahead of time because it is run so tight. I think you've got a big complication that Grand Central doesn't have.
Aren't we talking about Amtrak trains? I don't understand what this conversation. Amtrak trains at Grand Central. Grand Central has over 100 tracks. There's no capacity issue at Grand Central. There won't be in our lifetimes.
No, it's not a capacity.
Yeah, they bring in it's the whole thing. It's an absurd thing. I don't know. It does have someone did say. Well, let's be clear. Someone did say they don't want a long line of passengers snaking through the terminal. Grand Central Terminal is huge. They could put up whatever. They could make a line of waiting. They could announce these trains days before. I mean, come on. They probably gave Amtrak 2 tracks. Come on, this is ridiculous.
Okay. Edith?
The issue of the Atlantic ticket. We discussed, I think, last meeting or the meeting before, the issue in regard to subways. The issue of multiple names for a station. Now, Atlantic Terminal is Barclay, is what is it? Yeah, it's like, it's got too many names, and we're just making yet another name. We're reifying it. We're putting in concrete that this station has way too many names.
It's Atlantic Terminal on the railroad. It's Atlantic Avenue Barclay Center on the subway. 2 names.
They got rid of Pacific Street.
No. It should. She's right. She's exactly right.
I said they got rid of Pacific Street.
Other names for it as well. I think we have to. I just think.
You mean pejorative names?
Well, that too. But I wasn't thinking of that. I just really think that somehow there needs to be a universal name for a stop and a universal way of labeling things. Like 207 is a 2, whereas it could be Inwood. So there are multiplicity of names we really need to look at, making it easier for passengers to find where they're trying to go.
Yeah, I mean, because there are 9 subway lines serving Atlantic Avenue Barclay Center that all have the name Atlantic Avenue Barclay, I think the Long Island Terminal should be called Atlantic Avenue Barclay Center, but I guess it was called Atlantic Terminal to indicate it's the end of the line.
So we're going to call it 207 Inwood Terminal.
You could. Anyway, our speaker isn't here yet, and I'm not going to go. You can read the transit report in your emails because there's so much in there that it would take me a long time. So let's go to old business before our speaker gets here, if we could. Does anyone have any old business items? If not, we will move to new business. Chris,
Uh,
we will suspend it when our speaker arrives, just so everyone knows.
Duty noted, but I understand. Andrew, I have also gotten a response of a complaint issue that was today also, that accessibility issues, as Edith mentioned, you mentioned Atlantic Avenue, part of it, of mixed communication on signages, and thank you for saying that. But let's add your signing to accessible signing. There is not a sign to tell them where the elevators.
Where are we talking about,
I'm
Chris?
talking about Atlantic Terminal for the LIRR, or whatever you want to call it, Barclays Center. To me, Barclays Center. Not on the subways, LIRR. In that area, thank God you know where. If you know where the bathrooms are, thank you. But elevators, directingly, lately, I'm hearing that signs are coming off, or people who like to play around graffiti or rip them apart. There's been a lot of issues, complaints that crime. Not MTA police are not always in the area. They do have an office there, but I do not see them anywhere. There is a safety concern of that, and it's a worriness because, as I mentioned earlier, about a ceiling leaking, which has a plastic bag. As I said before, that's one concern. Secondly, if they know that an elevator is out, thank you, but there is no signs directing them where the elevators are. Third, the bathrooms are, if they're closed or locked, they're being cleaned. There's no proper signages for them to let them know when they're going to be cleaning them or when is it out of service. The signs are being ripped off and torn apart. Can we please ask MTA police to be there?
I mean, this is best directed to IRA.
I'm mentioning it to you
because
and
it's
IRA.
the Long
I'm saying
Island
in front
Railroad
of
Commuter
everyone in the
Council's
LIRR.
terminal. We can report what we can report, obviously.
And the main fine part is
I think the Brooklyn Beep should also make complaints.
he already has.
Okay.
But there's been no response, and I just got an email from him now that there's been no response back. So I'm asking is if there can please be response.
I mean, I can certainly follow up with Phil Eng or Ira can.
Can you guys just please, both of you guys, please respond back and ask him what is going on for the respond time? Because
especially now with so much more focus being made on Atlantic Terminal, I would think this is something they
agree.
would want to do.
You just took the words out of my mouth. So I'm asking, is there possible, can we please get
can.
something
We
accomplished
will.
on it? And can you please let me know so if there's a problem with the BP, I will forward
Yes.
it to make sure to get his attention.
Edith, you'll be the last one before our speaker.
Okay. I went to visit my brother a couple of weekends ago, and so I came in onto Huntington on, I'm going to call it the South Track. I don't know what it's officially known as. And the outgoing train was on the North Track. There's like no signage that I saw that tells you, go take the elevator, go up and over, go into the garage, go down in the garage, go across the driveway, go up the ramp, and get back on the train. In which time, if they didn't know I was switching trains, the train would have been long gone.
Long gone, yes.
And I had a little trail of people when I came back into the city who were following me.
This is Huntington?
This is at Huntington. There's no signage in the elevator that tells you what floor to get off. Everyone comes up the elevator, goes across, and runs down the stairs. Except I can't do that. I got to use the other elevator. And then I've got to wheel through the...
This is changing from an electric train to a diesel in Huntington? Is that what you're referring to? Or
Yeah.
okay, to continue your okay.
To go for, I was going to St. James.
Yeah.
Right. The train's on the other track. They tell you that the train is on the other track, but they don't tell you. Go up, go over, come down, go through the driveway, go up the ramp, and be back on the other platform.
And how much is the allotted time between the arrival of the electric train and the departure of the diesel train? 5 minutes?
I don't even think it was that.
Not even that.
No.
Okay.
And the other complaint I'm getting is people concerned about Ronkonkoma, where the main elevator to the center platform is being done. And there's a lot of concern about signage. Exactly. Okay, I was going to say the absence of signage from the South Track to, I'm going to call it the airport track. And people have no idea how to get from that platform up over to the station. What I usually do is wait for the inbound train and just wheel through.
Ira's making notes on this, I can see. You know. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yep. Yep. Can you use your microphone, please?
Me.
It's
Thank
on.
you, thank you. With the track work that's going on, and the buses, you couldn't get a wheelchair or baggage onto any of those buses that are being used. I asked specifically the other couple of times. One day they had a school bus. So how do you get on and off? And I think that's a really, I saw 3 people go to taxis, and somebody went to a Uber.
Yep. Yep.
So that's an issue.
Right. I mean, you know, I was going to the airport to meet someone, and I ended up staying at the station, calling them like, "You'd better just find a taxi and come meet me here, and we'll take the train into the city." And I told them never to buy a ticket to MacArthur again. I don't care how cheap it is.
Well, second track is about to open, which will make the trip a lot better.
And it's
But
a
it's
$6 fare.
not if we don't have the elevator and
Duly
directions to the elevator.
We got
I mean,
it.
I have wheeled over the bridge on one occasion when there was work being done in the elevators.
It's doable if you know where to go.
We
Right.
can
That's-
continue
but it's
this after, but our speakers
it's
arrived.
incredibly
and
dangerous. It
He's
may
got
be
so much
doable,
on
but
his
it's
plate
dangerous.
that I would love to start him off. So welcome to Jano Lieber. He's the MTA's Chief Development Officer. He joined the agency in June of 2017. He heads up the MTA Capital Construction Company and manages the major capital projects, which include 2nd Avenue Phase 2, East Side Access, Penn Station Access, the Enhanced Station Initiative, improved rail mass transit to JFK, LIRR third track, LIRR double track, a host of real estate development issues. I'm abbreviating this because we want to hear from Jano. He's a graduate of Harvard University and New York Law School. Jano Lieber.
I love coming. I worked in the Koch administration dealing with MTA issues early in my career when we were just starting to. Hi, how are you? When we were just starting to turn around the New York City mass transit system, and I got out of college. It was the most exciting thing that I thought was going on in New York, and the most transformational because, we all know that sort of New York runs on its subway, not only for the practical reason of it supports our economy, it allows us to get lots of people close together so they can create value and have, and come up with ideas that's the essence of our economy, but also because it is kind of our public square. This is, I think, for New Yorkers, this is where we form our opinion of this community we live in, we're part of. So it had to be better, and obviously in the 70s when I was growing up in the city, it went so far down. But it was the most exciting thing, and the PCA, I don't even know if it was called the PCAC, but there was a ridership council, and I got to attend it, and all I can tell you is this organization has always represented the passionate voice of New Yorkers on the issues of mass transit. You do channel what regular New Yorkers are thinking and feeling and experiencing about the system. So I just had to share that I think it's a great organization, and through Bill and Ellen and the members of the board who represent you, Randy and Ira and Andrew, your voice really does have an impact. And this isn't off the record, right? There's nobody on the board who knows more about mass transit than your guys. And it really makes a difference. So I wanted to congratulate you about that. They asked, your team, your leaders asked me just to talk a little about what I'm doing, especially in the area of sort of the cost containment exercise, the big bogeyman that we all have to deal with, which is how are we going to do as much as we all know needs to be done in the system, especially on the big projects, at a cost we can afford and a time frame we can afford. So I spent, I was involved with mass transit, as I said, in the Koch administration era, and then in the Clinton era, I worked in the U.S. DOT, and this is my third stint in government. But in between, I worked on the private side of real estate development, representing the Silverstein organization, Larry Silverstein, on the rebuilding of the World Trade Center site. So I saw a little bit about experience for 14 years about how private sector redevelopment is done, and especially alongside government, which was struggling to do their part of the World Trade Center project. And I hope that I learned a few things that I can bring to bear in this effort. So I came in, and of course I inherited East Side Access, which is the mother of all challenged projects in terms of budget and schedule, just for a little hors d'oeuvre, right? But I inherited, as was said in the introduction, the Second Avenue Phase 2 and so on. But and double track, which is the double track on the Ronkonkoma branch, which is hopefully going to be a model in some positive way, because it's actually going to get done much faster than was originally anticipated. And it's going to be done in August, which is great news. The less than great news is that we're going to have, for the full value of the double tracking, you're really going to have to wait until the third track project is completed, is that ultimately those trains run onto the main line, so you can't increase the frequency and the volume too much. But you will get more reliability as a result of having two-track service. You won't have that situation where one train is stopped, so everything is stopped. You have some ability to circumvent problems if and when they develop. And you will, for the first time, have some reverse commuting in the peak. And let me tell you, when I've gone out to a couple events in Long Island and talked to people who are involved with the new Ronkonkoma Hub project, which is a transit-oriented development, cheek by jowl with that big Ronkonkoma station. And there's another transit-oriented development that's striving to get born. And those people are talking about the excitement of having the ability to attract workforce from the city or from Queens and so on, because for the first time you have reverse commuting service. So it's going to, double track is going to be done. There's always a little risk because you're cutting over signals, right? That's something that's complicated. But it looks like we are going to get it done in August, and you're going to be able to initiate some of this improvements to service in the fall. And I think that that's a shot in the arm to have a project that does, 16 months early on schedule, in effect cut 40% of its schedule out by the application of some creative strategies. I think that's maybe shows everybody inside our organization where it's going to take a while till we have credibility on these issues as an institution, but it shows everybody that it is possible if you use some of the strategies. The other thing, I'll talk about East Side Access in a moment, but the other thing that's, I think, positive in a forward-going way is what we're doing on the third track project. So what's different about the third track project from the way mega projects have been done in the past? One, it's a design-build project. And for folks who are not into the vocabulary of this world, what it means is that instead of having a design team of architects and engineers design the whole project and then hand it over to a builder, which results in some inefficiencies inevitably because the builder's going to say, I don't like how this is designed, or I don't understand how this is designed, or what you designed I can't build because the means and methods and the logistics that would be necessary to build it are unavailable to me because of the way the site is configured or the access that I get or whatever. That's very frequent. In a project like East Side Access, you have hundreds and hundreds of what you call RFIs. It's the builder saying, I don't understand what the designers designed, right? And you're constantly going back and forth, and it creates inefficiencies. And Instead, you pair the builder and the design team, and you say, guys, here's a very preliminary design. I wouldn't call it a cartoon, but in design terms, it's much rougher. And say, you guys go off as a team and figure out what's the best and fastest and most efficient way to build what we want, the outcome. So it aligns the design team and the builder in a way that's very important in terms of getting a better product, faster, hopefully cheaper, and with more alignment between, again, the design and the construction, eliminating a lot of that mess. And so that's a methodology. It's not a super novelty, but it is a bit of a novelty for the MTA. So we're using that on Third Track. The other thing that we did on Third Track that I think is exciting is that we spent a lot of time talking to the communities. Now, part of that was a political necessity because this project was not super popular in all those communities along the Long Island Main Line. There were people who are understandably concerned about the impact of the construction and additional service impacts. There are more trains, they're going to make more noise, and they were concerned about, are there going to be property takings? Is my backyard going to shrink? So there was a lot of discussion with the communities and the mayors, and we know it's not the city of New York. This is somewhat balkanized little communities along the right-of-way. But as a result of that process, there was a lot of discussion, and there was what inevitably happens in projects is, the rumor mill starts, people hear stuff, they don't know what to believe. There was much more openness in talking about what was going to happen here, and there were some commitments made, commitments about process, about the dialogue that would exist between the community and the government, and commitments about what the community could expect. You're going to get sound walls. They're not going to be 20 feet high, which is what some people in one corner of the right-of-way now want, which is like going to look like a handball court if you do it. But they'll be 8 feet high, and we can get you comfortable with an 8-foot-high sound wall because it's the sound engineer to explain how that works as well as a 20-foot-high wall. So there was dialogue, there were commitments made, and grade crossing elimination, thank you for the reminder. The elimination of the grade crossings, which some people are worried about because it will mean that it's harder to get back and forth from the north to south side of the right-of-way. But those grade crossings were such a source of delay for the railroad, with people constantly getting either they're just blatantly violating the law and safety and going across when the gates are down, the lights are going, or they misunderstand. Believe it or not, Waze and Google Maps, apparently, people misunderstand it, and then they, God forbid, they turn onto the right-of-way of the railroad instead of turning onto the road that's on the other side of the right-of-way. So eliminating grade crossings, which are a source of constant accidents and delays, safety benefit to the communities. What? And another good point from the peanut gallery here. The honking, the bells, the honking. People are waiting 20 minutes to get across at the peak hour because we're talking about a corridor that runs 200-plus trains in the peak daily. So people were sitting there waiting to get their kids to school or get across the street across the right-of-way for medical appointment, and frustration and so on. So in 5 of those grade crossing, they're building an crossing, in effect, creating a little tunnel underneath the railroad, which is a really complicated exercise to do without shutting down the railroad for a long time. But we're going to do it in a weekend, believe it or not, with a lot of preparation. And so there are real benefits, and there's a real better understanding of how to balance all of the public goals and individual communities' goals. And there was a commitment not to do residential property takings, which I think was a game changer, because it eliminated a lot of the paranoia and fear about, my backyard is going to be wiped out, and I'm going to have the trains, 10 feet from my kitchen. So it was a good process. And so how do we turn that into a good project? So creating public expectations, creating a better understanding with the community, forcing us to plan out the work, how we're going to do it, given the public commitments that have been made, given the impacts, plan it all out in advance. That makes for a better project. Then we did a procurement for a design build team, and there were three very competent teams. This is a combination of the architects, engineers, and the builders, and a lot of other consultants and experts coming together in one team. And as a result of trying to keep the cost down and to have a successful procurement, we spent a lot of time thinking about how do you share risk between the builder and the government agency, right? If one of the risks to the project is the utility relocations, how do we get everybody comfortable that PSE&G is going to act timely and it can be cooperative, and they're not just going to say, too bad, so sad, we can't move our utility poles for another 6 months, and the project gets screwed over in costs and so on. So there was a lot of planning that went into the project before you actually did the procurement and did the contract with these design-build teams. Who's responsible for what risk? Who's responsible for solving what problem? And that got us better pricing. Still not cheap. It's $2.5 billion. But it got us a lot better pricing than we thought we were going to get, and we got a lot better schedule, which is, of course, better for communities and so on. So those are things that we initiated in what I like to think of as potentially a model project to take a big project and to make it a success from the beginning. And then we're doing some things right now that we have the project underway, to minimize what I think of, everyone talks about big issues that cause projects to go over budget. We don't have enough competition in the contracting community. The contractors are scared of working with the MTA because we're inefficient and unpredictable, and government and the public could intervene and the project could take a lot longer, so they give us higher prices. Those are big issues that we have to solve in lots of different ways. But I'm trying to just give you a flavor of some of the project management stuff you can do on an individual project to eliminate risk and cost exposure. And for example, one of the things that we're doing now on this third track project is we're monitoring every design submittal that comes from the design team to the railroad and saying, how fast did we approve that? How fast did we give comments? Because that kind of stuff really slows a project down. There are hundreds and thousands of design submittals that make sure that the railroad approves how they're doing it. And this stuff is important. It's signals, it's major technology issues, and so on. But you can fall behind. So literally, we have I'm just showing you guys, I'm not passing it out. It's not really cooked to be passed out, but we have like what we call the heat map. So, the things that the agreement is that we respond to every submittal within 20 days. But if something is more than, if it's open more than 8 days even, it goes on the heat map as yellow. If it's more than 15 days, it goes on as orange, and anything over that 21-day max is in red. So we're constantly monitoring our own performance in this very important, albeit preliminary, stage of the project. Then we're monitoring the productivity of the outages. So we give a builder an outage on the railroad, whether it's a night outage or even a weekend outage when you're taking a lot of service down for a whole weekend, and we are monitoring whether they actually how much work they actually get done. Because those outages are so precious, right? We're talking about impacts to service. We're talking about the public not having service available, that we've got to make sure that we get work done, that we are being efficient with them. So we're having another one of the things that we're monitoring is our productivity on outages. Are we really succeeding? And, if we're not, there's hell to pay, and we have to learn from it. And that's the whole point, is the contractor has to plan. And truthfully, the contractor's learning. We're a very early stage of this project. We're in the so-called LNTP process, limited notice to proceed. So they're not even in the heavy work. They're in the stage of they're doing brush clearing in areas where they know they're going to have to work on the right-of-way. They're doing some very limited utility relocations. They're doing test borings where they try to figure out if there's something underground that they don't know about. Make sure that you know everything that's in the area you're going to work in so that you don't have any surprises. So all this stuff is preliminary in nature, but even so, some of it's in the right-of-way, some of it is done on outages, and we are monitoring even from the beginning, are we using those outages effectively? Contractor was very unproductive at the beginning, and we are both nursing him along, or them along, because it's all big teams, but also monitoring performance. And the third area where we're monitoring like crazy is public commitments. We made, I think there are 25 different areas where we made public commitments, and some of them have to do with, the public participation in the design process. Some of them have to do with dust control and noise vibration, things that everybody worries about when they have a big project in their neighborhood. And we're, again, really monitoring our compliance with all of those. And it's not just because you want it to be politically popular. It's because if the public loses confidence and yells and screams about the impacts of what's going on, if we haven't effectively communicated with people so they know what's coming, if we say, hey, we're going to be working in your backyard area on the railroad, but it's going to take a week. This is what we're going to accomplish. We don't want you to be surprised. People will be much more cooperative. I find that people will tolerate a lot if you tell them what's coming, why it's happening, and when it's going to be over, and then you make good on those promises. So we want to do that so that we don't have public outcry, which translates into politicians yelling and screaming, and then you have to change how you're doing the work, and it gets slowed down and so on. A lot of that happened, frankly, on 2nd Avenue subway until the agency, I wasn't here, the agency got smart and started a really effective, late in the game, they started a reasonably effective public outreach operation, and we learned from that. So there are many, many things to talk about, and Bill and team asked me to talk about what we're doing to get the MTA on a better path as far as cost and schedule performance. But I just wanted you to have a flavor of what I think are good things that we're already doing to model good behavior. Well, first of all, that's what, accountability is for. If you're monitoring something effectively, then people are being held accountable. If you don't monitor it, if you don't even know how far, how many submittals you have that are behind, and if there isn't a regular meeting where people are being held to task, then you have a loosely run project that tends to accumulate problems. I mean, I've got on one element of East Side Access, I have over 500 change orders. Now, change orders are backlogged. Change orders themselves are not evil. You don't want them because it means that, the disadvantage of change orders is that your leverage with a contractor is very different than when you're bargaining at the beginning and before you make a deal, because in effect you're trying to negotiate a change to the contract in the middle of the contract, and they say it costs $1 million, and you say, come on, our estimator says it costs $200,000, and it's a different negotiation. So you like to avoid them. But inevitably, in a large, complex project, they're going to exist. There are going to be field conditions that you encounter that are unexpected, nobody's fault, that are unknown or unexpected. There are going to be, and East Side Access, a lot of the change orders come honestly, because our friends at Amtrak aren't providing people to supervise work, and then we have to say, well, we didn't get those utility poles done when we were working in that area. Now we have to wait until the next time we're working in that area on something else, and we have to do a change order for this other contract to add the utility poles to their work because we couldn't get them done in this contract. So those are crummy change orders. The point I'm making is, when you have a backlog of change orders, it probably means that you haven't been monitoring them. And accountability, if you're really monitoring something, we all know this from different businesses we work in, and you're raising an issue in a professional setting, you're going to have a better result. That's my theory. Yeah.
Yeah, you heard our exchange on all of the deadlines and everything that with Eastside. Well, you know that I lived through going way, way back. So wouldn't you say that what you're doing now with Eastside Access is one great big change order, having to build on everything or undo or work with what happened before, which led to the mess that you've now inherited?
Yes.
I mean, that's
Next
what
question.
no, seriously.
No, no, it is. It is.
Seriously, I
You
mean,
are.
I
You're right.
and
The
not
whole
only
thing is.
sympathize, I empathize and sympathize with you.
Let's talk about East Side Access and somebody in the commercial. I went and spoke at a Commercial Observer conference yesterday, and there's just an article online about I'm talking too positively about East Side Access. I should keep talking about only how screwed up it is. So, but I decline to do that because I think that one of the problems with this project is it is a disservice to the public not to explain why this project is important. That doesn't justify the cost and schedule underperformance, but we owe it to ourselves to talk about why is this being done. So let me just go over that quickly because I really think nobody reminds us. One, because together with Third Track, this is the way we're going to get a 45% increase in peak hour capacity for the Long Island Railroad into Manhattan. That's a stunning change. Nobody's talked about that. We're talking about a huge increase in the amount of service we can provide to Long Island. And Long Island needs more and more reliable service if it's going to be able to grow in a positive way, which means more transit-oriented development, more walkability at, in these communities. And yeah, well, no, but this is like planning. This is planning 101. We need more service because Long Island, the governor talks about Long Island Railroad was created when there were 40,000 people living on Long Island, and now there are almost 3 million. So we need to be able to give Long Islanders more service and more options. That's why this project is important. I know this is an Alper hobby horse. We can't forget Long Island. That includes Brooklyn and Queens. So that's that's another 7 million people. But however you count it, so we need more service. And the other thing is, East Side Access, as screwed up as it has been and as maligned as it has been, it is our gateway. For Long Islanders, there's only one way to get off, commuter rail on and off the island of Manhattan, and it's through some very sandy, damaged tunnels. And last I checked, that's the same condition with the Hudson, as they talk about for New Jersey and the Northeast Corridor with the Hudson River tunnels. We have no backup. We need that redundancy. Yes, everybody forgets. So let me just finish. So those are important values to the project. Is it worth 11 billion, 9 billion, 10 billion? I don't know. But we cannot talk about this project without talking about why it's important, because we have to get to the end and we need everybody to be on the same team. Yeah.
And going back to the way you're dealing with the contracts, because what you're saying is very different from anything that has gone before you on getting productivity counts and accountability and all of that sort of thing. And I'm wondering, at what stage, when you're issuing the contracts, did you have detailed talks with contractors to understand, to help them understand there was going to be accountability and productivity updates and maybe an intensity level of those that does sound very different from what was done before?
So it's going to take more than one project. I couldn't walk in and tell them, oh, everything's going to be different now. Yeah, they would be polite, but when they walked out of the room, they'd laugh at me. It's going to take a couple projects before we have that credibility to say, you should rethink your pricing, you should rethink how you evaluate the risks to you here. We have to succeed first and ask for credit later. It's experience. We're going to have to prove that this is a little different MTA or a little different capital construction organization. So I appreciate that, but, you know, it's different than like when I was in the private sector. You know, I did 3 or 4 buildings at the World Trade Center site with the same team, Tishman Construction, a lot of the same consultants. They knew what to expect from us, and they knew we were a good owner. And that's what the MTA has to become. We have to be a good owner who makes decisions timely, who's predictable in their behavior, who pays on time. Contractors, if you don't pay contractors on time, you're asking them to be your lender. You're asking them to cover their payroll and get paid later. So, you know, there are a lot of things that we have to do to be a good owner and not to create more risks and headache. There are one of the problems the MTA has is that a lot of good contractors say, I don't want to bid on MTA work because it's too much of a headache. I can't make money. It takes forever. I got all these people that are stuck in that project forever. And we have to prove to the contracting community we can do it a little bit better.
On Ellen's question,
Yeah.
and I'll getting back to East Side Access. Here you're not issuing new contracts with a lot of the work that's being done. These contracts exist, and all of these contractors are used to operating in the old way, which has screwed everything up. So how do you get them to go along with your new ethos, your new way of doing things?
I don't want to lie to you. That's an area where I'd say that I'm not yet certain of whether I'll be successful. I'm in the process of trying to change how they react as well as we behave. But this project is so massive, and there's so much history. And you're absolutely right. There are already contracts in place that have their own history and problems and staffing and relationships. So that is a work in progress. I don't want to tell you, you know, I turned it all around, you know, overnight. But what I guess I'm trying to convey is that where we have the ability to take things from the start, we're trying to show how we can do it better. And we're trying to bring the same ethos to East Side Access. I've changed some of the personnel that are dealing with specific, you know, sensitive elements of the project. I hope I'll be able to come to you guys again in a year or so and say, I think we did change it, but it is a work in progress. It's a good question.
You raised this issue earlier in your talk about the number of contractors we have, and I was noticing at the last board meeting how many projects, for instance, Judlow was involved in. Between the Canarsie Tube, Cortlandt Street, something on Long Island, 2nd Avenue, Phase 1. I mean, it just goes on and on. Are we paying more because we don't have as many contractors bidding? Or have they gotten together and decided you'll bid on this?
I don't think, honestly, I don't think it's, you know, again, this is my opinion. You're asking, can't prove it to you. I don't think it's corrupt. I think it's that remember, people go into business in an area because they can make money, right? Contractors look around in New York, and if they want to be here, it's a complicated construction environment. You don't have much room to work with. The labor is expensive. There are a lot of variables that can go wrong that are not at risk when you're operating in a greenfield site. I mean, none of us, we like redeveloping cities and bringing people into cities rather than sprawl development. But sprawl development is easier to do for a contractor, right? So you have to address the fact that this is a difficult construction environment with a lot of demerits and try to get it to be more attractive to contractors. And I think that we have to do better. That said, when I was in the private sector, there weren't 100 general contractors. If you wanted to build an office building, there were 4 or 5. So it's not the fact that Judlow has a lot of work and Dragados has a lot of work and some of these other companies that we all hear about have a lot of work is not, I don't think it's the only thing. Some of your colleagues tend to focus only on, you know, imagining that there would be 50 general contractors who would want to do MTA work. You're inevitably, because it's a railroad environment, you're going to have some specialization. It's not, you know, there aren't 50 companies who want to figure out how to work in a railroad environment.
But Does the sheer size of the MTA and its projects mean that we won't get certain people bidding because bonding requirements are really high or something? We get the same 3 car manufacturers for every subway car purchase we do. You know, Kawasaki,
and-
Bombardier, and Alstom. That's it.
And you know, Ford, GM, not that different in the automobile business, right? Listen, you raise a good question. Like, what can we do to attract more competition? I think that my point is that's one, we shouldn't think it's unlimited. 2, we have to focus on the subcontractor level as much as the general contractors. Judlow is a general contractor. What I'm more worried about is how many electrical subs do we have who can work with Local 3, the New York Electrical Workers Union, right? Who know how to work with Local 3 work rules, which are pretty restrictive. So that's, you know, so I would focus more on the sub level to get more competition. Whether out-of-state contractors or people who are working in New Jersey and Connecticut who don't come to New York, I think that's where there may be. And your point about bonding, so that companies don't feel they have to use their entire bonding capacity just to participate in one MTA contract, that's actually one of the elements, the recommendation that's going to come out of the board cost containment task force, is reduce the bonding requirements, you know, accept other forms of security in circumstances that are appropriate. Mr. Strauss.
Question. My understanding is that there have been similar approaches elsewhere in the world. And I'm wondering, have we learned anything from what they've done, and is there anything we can do to make it similar?
We're trying. I don't want to mislead you. I haven't become an expert on it, but you got to look at Spain, which builds subways that, you know, even I'm still not certain that the numbers that the New York Times quoted and the math that they use is 100% accurate, but there's no question that Spain has figured out how to build subways a lot cheaper than we have. So we are looking at a couple places. We're looking at Spain. We're looking at London, which is not dissimilar from New York in the sense that it had a great system that went down a ways and then they brought it back, and trying to figure out what are the methods they're using. A lot of the stuff that I've talked to you about this morning today is stuff that approaches that London in particular has used. But when people talk to you about how expensive labor is in New York and suggest that there's some kind of corrupt deal between the unions and the consultants and so on, I'm not certain that's a fair, unless you can prove it, a fair thing to say. There's, New York, we pay very large benefit packages, but we don't have national health care like they have in Europe, right? A lot of our cost is a function of what the government requires nationally and otherwise. So, but we're trying to learn from those places, and that'll be a continuing effort. I'm going to have to run away in a couple of minutes.
I'm encouraged by the clarity in the way you express, especially the sharing of the risk, because I think if people understand that it's a project that's to benefit and impact everybody involved, then there's a give and take. So I'm wondering do you foresee any cost savings at the end of this because of the leveraging that you've done?
Well, that's the purpose. I mean, the purpose is better budgets, better schedules, right? But there are two levels of it. One is when we're talking about getting more competition affects the bid price that you get. More, if you have a rational allocation of risk between the government, the owner, and the contractor, they might give you a better price because they're not as worried about things that might cost them money and so on. The other element is once you set the budget and you buy the job, as we say, does the cost go up, up, up? So I think we're trying to deal with both of those variables, both the original price that you get when you bid the work in the marketplace competitively, and even more important is once you have a deal, you end up with these huge cost increases that we've seen on a couple projects, especially East Side Access.
So what's the margin that did you think would
well
be a success in this?
I hesitate to say, I put it this way, I would be thrilled if we didn't have cost increases after we actually contracted for work. That would be the first level of super duper success. And the next level is over time through the use of, metrics, because every project is different, but using some reasonable comparative metrics to see that we're being able to build more, fix more at a better cost per unit, per mile, call it whatever you wish. So I think the second is going to take longer because we're going to have to convince the world that it's a better environment and they can get work done and it's not getting more expensive. And frankly, we're working against ourselves because we all know we got to spend a lot of money and do a lot of work to fix the subways, right? And as there gets to be more work, the price is not going to go down. So I'm more cautious about suggesting that we can expect the pricing for bids to go down. I'm more focused on once you have the bids, let's manage the job so that we don't have surprises and cost increases. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Payment of the contractors. I was on a Long Island train one day, and not to get political, but I want you to know it was not an MTA complaint, but when Donald Trump was running for office, I was on a car. It was filled with construction workers around 3:34 in the afternoon, the construction workers train, and there was a car of men furious and complaining about doing work and not getting paid. And they were furious. I mean, I'm thinking, and if you have to work with this angry group of people that are accustomed to not being paid for whatever or whoever they're working for, that's a tough group of people that you have to deal with because they're not feeding their families. This is the plumber and the bricklayer and the electrician. And I mean, I was in the seat across from the conductor and quite pleased that I was not in the middle of the train. It was a furious car. And in all my years of travel, I have never sat on a car with such fury in my life. And I travel a lot.
Well, one of the ironies, this is an off-the-record discussion, right? But one of the ironies is... Well, we'll just say when the president was a real estate developer, he had a reputation.
Well, that was proved out in this car.
Yeah.
And when you consider it was a rush hour train, it was a packed car.
Folks, our speaker has to leave, so thank you very much, Jano. We wish you the best of luck because it's important to all of us that you be successful. Your luck is our luck. Exactly.
Well, keep it coming because your team on the board is really making a difference. I just hope you all realize that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other issues that folks would like to bring up? Chris.
I'll be quick. When are we going to have Andrew Byford come here?
That would be to Transit Riders Council more likely than PCAC, I would think. But if
Yeah,
everybody wants it, we can try to schedule it for
We
PCAC.
we actually have, we're in the works on trying to get him on the schedule for Transit Riders Council. I don't know if we're going to be able to get him for this month. Otherwise, we're also shooting for July. And we would obviously invite anyone who wants to come to that meeting, regardless of whether they're a TRC member, to show up. And
it's open.
We can't. Yes, we can. We have a certificate. She's not here, but
We're going to present some certificates to members that have given us 10 years of service. Edith Prentice, you are one of them, so thank you so much.
let me get you.
there's no more. Oh, there is one more, but she's not here. Rhonda Herman is. Did I even? I never got it. Oh, I got something. I got something for longer than that.
Longer than that.
Last year, we presented a 30-year certificate to Rich Cottagio and to Andrew, and this was done in March. We gave Bill Guild one for 20 years in March, and in December, Marisol got one for 20 years, and this year there's just two. There's two. Yeah, you're doing, and you've been here since 2000, so in 2020, we'll give you a 20-year certificate. Well, we weren't giving them out back then. We only started this last year.
I didn't get one either. A 10-year one.
Okay. I just want to say one thing. I did get a hold of someone at Metro North, and he disputes that the people there didn't know about the Amtrak trains being there. And he says if you have any names, he's happy to have them, and he'll follow up personally with it. That's all we're going to say about it. The
Randy,
discussion is over.
No, I agree with you saying. I thank you very much for the record.
Ellen?
Thank you.
I just want to say this is really uplifting. Mark Young from Long Island Railroad has just sent an email, and we'll put something together, but it's a complete update on what's happened with Atlantic Ticket already, just in what they're doing, and looks like some stuff from the field. But they've been a great partner in this, in really showing enthusiasm and trying to make it a success. So just want to say that.
That's great news. Stuart.
Is it on the web page as an icon? Not our. It does have.
They have their own web page, which is really nice and clean, frequently asked questions. I mean, it's well done, yeah.
But on MTA.info, maybe we would want them to.
Well, now it's on the right-hand side of MTA.info, but,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, it's actually a sub page of MTA.info, and you can access it from the right side of the main page.
Yes, Edith.
Even though Iris left, there are other Long Islanders here. It was very complicated working with the website during those weekends where they were changing the frequency of travel so that, yeah, the track work. Okay, so you go to the website and it tells you that they've changed the frequency of the train from Manhattan to Huntington and the frequency of the train from Huntington to Port Jefferson. And it was very complicated to figure out. It's great you're telling me it's like every hour instead of half hour or hour and a half or 2 hours instead of, but it was hard to figure out what train they're actually talking about. So if you're taking, the frequency of the train, you're like going, so when is there a train?
Sheila.
I only use the Long Island Railroad schedules, and it pops up, and you actually say the two stations you're going to.
Yes, that's
and
real
the
time.
and you get the next 5 trains. You get any problems, any alerts, any broken services, and you can put in for the time you're leaving or for the time you're arriving, and it never fails me. That's the one that I use.
The problem is that's another.
Oh, well, that's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it.
Right.
But other people are obviously using it, so it's not a well-kept secret. So that's a good thing.
It was very, then I also didn't realize that there actually was a live person. Remember we used to have live people answering? It was really funny because the guy, like the information log. Because I started doing this before 8 a.m. and the information line comes live at 8. You're trying to figure out, and suddenly there are people answering. So it's a little problematic.
There's a lot of between PTC second track, and other things. There's a lot of things happening on the Long Island Railroad, so your best bet for a reliable schedule is to put in what, like Sheila just said, your 2 points.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not getting up to the minute.
Yeah.
Those things take into account all the general orders that are going on.
Right. Yeah, the train time app is really good. And I'll just mention one thing. It actually picks up the elevator outages. So you have an alert when you're taking a train that might use a platform where there's an elevator out. You have an alert that tells you.
Does that include the Penn Station elevators?
It includes I've got one. I was looking at Baldwin to Penn Station, and the alert I have that comes up is Penn Station elevator not working. Penn Station C, platform 8, tracks 15 and 16. Yeah.
My favorite one.
Yep.
Yes? I see it.
Andrew, I'm very tired of this. When we leave the developmental center and get onto the B83 and then we go across the parkway, that's fine, we make great time. And all of a sudden, the bus apps and all the apps say that the B82 or the limit is coming back. And they tell us they'll be here in 1 minute, 2 minutes. 1 minute is 2 hours. It's been 1 hour to 2 hours. We've been waiting. They keep forgetting that people need the buses in the Spring Creek Towers.
Are you saying that the bus time is telling you there's a bus in 1 minute, but it's really an hour away?
No. What happens is that, it's saying that because we see the buses, because we're right by the last stop, and we see them make the turn onto Seaview, and okay, we wait, and then all of a sudden we see them going empty down either Pennsylvania, or most of them go down Louisiana Avenue, but claiming they'll be here in 5 minutes.
When they do that, are they deadheading or are they in service?
They're all going to Rockaway Parkway. They're not coming to us, period. So, I mean, it's like go ahead.
I put this in already in the report I sent you like a couple of weeks ago, but the issue is the 82s between Spring Creek Towers, you miss one, you got to wait 30 to an hour, and then they just send them all up to Rockaway Parkway for no reason, and then they got a prayer if a local turns into unlimited because they're so behind, the bus is full already. Even just the first stop, it's full already. It's a safety and 88 problem. It's been going on since.
You sent this to Bill?
Yes, I did. I send this almost most of the times, but there's been no disrespect. Bill and Andrew have done an excellent job, but Bus Division has failed to respond back to any of those complaints.
What they tell us with regularity is they need to know specific times and places.
Hold on.
When a bus passes you,
Yes.
is it going too fast for you to get the actual vehicle number?
Yes.
It's going too fast.
It's they go 35 to 45 miles an hour. I do have that on the app.
We'll follow up.
Mhm.
If that's a particular problem to that particular route,
It's
then
still going on
something
as
has
we
to happen.
speak, even all times. I'm hearing this.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And thanks, everybody. Oh, Oren, you have something?
Yeah, just one comment. I know you're talking about making stations handicapped accessible on MTA New York City Transit. We have just one station in Rockland that we need to make handicapped accessible, and we have not gotten any status on that, and that's the Suffern train station. It's a big issue with Rockland County. We need to get that station handicapped accessible.
Observed. Okay. And thanks to everybody for coming. And the next full PCAC meeting is September 6th, I believe. Have a great summer. And if you come to Transit Riders Council, we'll see you then.